The Uncensored Threat, Chapter 1, The Seething Core of Society. I'm Catherine Lyle from Integrated Men's Health, and today I'm going to read you a chapter from my book. If you think it's not fucking up your brain, your energy levels, your relationships, and your penis, think again. Boys and men of all ages, from age 5 to 75, we are losing you. We are losing you sexually, mentally, emotionally. The truth can be very hard to swallow. Life is a lot less painful when our heads are in the sand. When awareness becomes present, pain starts to set in, discomfort, tension. When I start talking about pornography and the sexual disconnect, our beautiful planet has come to know. Where do you start to feel uncomfortable? At what point are you being triggered? If you want to look at what the seething core of society is, it is pornography and everything that it leads to. So not only because of the abuse against women, the rape and sexual violence, the demeaning and humiliating acts that men grow up thinking are normal, it's a lot more serious than that. It's a complicated web of damage and destruction, both at a surface level and in the brain and the vibrational frequency. This has to change, and when it does, the whole world will change. Pornhub had over 42 billion visits to its site in 2019. That's only one site on the internet. And it is stats like this that has led porn addiction to being classified as a global health crisis by GPs, police, and professionals in my field. According to my research, which began in 2016 and continues to this day, 87% of men surveyed are watching porn regularly. Viewing porn once a month or more is classified as being a regular user, especially if the user is only masturbating once a month. The psychology profession also backs that up, declaring that if you can't go without something for a month, then technically you are addicted to that vice. If you don't, or you can't masturbate without viewing porn, then you also have a porn addiction, regardless of the frequency. You'll hear me refer to my research throughout the book, which refers to a lengthy survey I've had available since 2018, which has gathered data from hundreds of men from all walks of life. The survey was published on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Snapchat, so it covers a wide demographic of men globally, right? So let's just take a moment now to acknowledge that the majority of the male population are addicted to pornography. How does that feel to you? When you know what it does to men and to relationships, it's hard not to see it as purely frightening. Another frightening statistic for both men and women is that over 95% of men that come to see me have erectile dysfunction. And half of those men aren't fully aware that there's any dysfunction at all. I mean, how is that even possible? I hear you ask. How can they not know? Because there's a lack of education around sexual health, and they watch porn every time they masturbate. So there's no awareness around porn-free stimulation and what their body is naturally doing. During sex, they may be okay because it's quick or hard or with someone new, but masturbating and taking time with one's body is a totally different thing. Which leads me to this incredible fact around mental health, that the medical profession and the healing profession either doesn't realize or refuses to acknowledge. Pornography is the number one cause of mental health issues. Why? Because it causes brain damage in the frontal lobe and reduces grey matter in the brain. This brain damage affects sexual behaviours, decision-making, focus and concentration, memory, moods, sexual behaviours, impulse control, emotional expression, and causes anxiety and depression. When 100% of men that are watching porn regularly have brain damage, it's kind of obvious why we have such massive issues in mental health for men and why the suicide rates are so high in men globally. Porn addiction is exactly the same as a drug addiction in terms of brain damage, addiction to the chemicals, and health and recovery from the hit and crash issues in the body. It means that men have no sexual energy. They're withdrawing from sex with partners and from society. They're not present when they're having sex. And socially, they're retreating from dating and love and looking for a quick fix sexual, gratification instead. Now, this is where pornography starts to ripple out into non-porn issues. The incidences of reported domestic violence and sexual assault and violence have gone through the roof in Australia and other countries, of course, especially in young men. We have to look at just how safe society and the home is for the women and girls. The teenagers, wow, where do I even start? They are all impotent and exhibiting suicidal thoughts and tendencies before they even leave high school. And they haven't even kissed a girl, let alone had sex yet. They don't even know what impotence is half the time. There's no sex education except for porn watching, countless hours of hardcore pornography, and sexual violence and humiliation. And now we're seeing a massive increase in reports to GPs of young women, teens, having sexual injuries. Education of young men is being affected. Women and children are being affected. Child-on-child sexual abuse has increased by 400% because of pornography, where the children are actually acting out sexual acts on each other with no consent, no boundaries, no concept, no context of how intimacy and love works. 25% of children between the ages of 0 and 8 have seen pornography. The average age of children seeing pornography for the first time now is between 5 and 11 years old. I treat plenty of men who have seen pornography from the age of 5 and who are masturbating before they reached teen years, and those men didn't have access to the internet. Infidelity is 300% more likely in a relationship because of porn. You'll start to see the world of relationships and men through my eyes as we journey through this book and its many references to intimacy and the damage porn is doing to relationships. So, if you had any doubt in your mind around the impact of pornography, then perhaps now you can see what we're actually dealing with. This book offers you information and education that you may not have heard before, from years of research, experience, and dedication. You may be triggered many times over by my blunt approach and my brutal honesty, but I decided when I wrote this book that I had to dive all in and get rid of the filter. Only then would this be as real and raw as it needs to be. I'm not your average porn addiction specialist, as I'm not just an academic. I work with men at ground zero, working with their bodies, with their minds, and doing research and gathering information through trial and error, and a ton of hands-on experience. At an estimate, I've probably spoken to over 25,000 men and have worked on over 4,000 as clients one-on-one over the years. The body is an amazing thing if you stop long enough to listen to it. It can heal itself almost by miracle every day. It can also shut down when it's had enough, but we often don't listen. And the go-to therapy results in a trip to the GP, grabbing some pills, maybe seeing a psychologist if you're adventurous. Sitting in a therapist's chair for hours on end will never give you the level of understanding that you need to really get this. To understand porn addiction and the impact it has on the body, you have to work with the body. As you saw in my first book, What No One Told You About Pornography, the number one cause of erectile dysfunction and mental health issues is porn addiction and the damage it does to the brain. I see it in nearly every client. So you are not the only one. You are not alone. That book went into quite a bit of detail around the porn addiction itself. This book is next level as we take a journey into the impact porn addiction is having on society. The information you'll hear me talking about in this book is not generalized information, and in fact, it goes against what some academics or doctors will say. I have access to modalities, skills, and intuition, which allow me to know a man's body, brain, behaviors, sexuality thoroughly and holistically. This has resulted in treatments which are designed specifically to help men with erectile dysfunction and porn addiction, struggling with being sexually functional and coping in all other areas of their life. We focus on sexuality, sensuality, arousal, retraining the brain, returning sensitivity to the penis, using breath work religiously, energy practices to activate sexual channels, full body orgasms, orgasm without ejaculation, multiple orgasms. I see myself as a lighthouse for men who are searching for validation and education around their sexuality. Comfort from the storm, if you like, solutions to the problems, compassion and understanding for shameful secrets and deep trauma. This book is different from all other books because I'm different. I'm not a doctor or a generalized practitioner. As I said, I'm a specialist, a practitioner in alternative medicine, and an expert in men's health and porn addiction. I see men every day who are suffering in all areas of their life because their biggest fear is that they'll never be able to get a full erection again during sex. And they're not even aware at that stage that it's pornography that is causing their biggest nightmare. I'm not here to sell to you. I'd rather educate you and let you make your own mind up. I'm confident that I'll be working with some of you in the next few weeks, months, and years, which is exciting for both of us. If what I'm saying resonates with you, I encourage you to reach out. You'll see quite a few chapters in this book on toxic masculinity, the Me Too movement, sexual violence, sex offenders, serial killers, domestic violence, other people's journeys with pornography, and of course, my own personal experiences with this. Rape, sexual assault, sexual harassment, sex trafficking, porn abuse, violence, narcissism, genocide, war, child abuse, domestic violence, inappropriate behaviors, seething anger, government, murder. Toxic masculinity points to these individuals and these individuals as groups. It has nothing to do with feminists though. It is simply fact. There are all kinds of toxicity in this world involving all sorts of people. But those that can't admit there's such a thing as toxic masculinity have a lot of work to do. Every time I open my mouth about these topics, I'm attacked and labelled as a man hater. Yay! This isn't a gender war. It's not women versus men. This isn't an us versus them argument. It's everyone against sexual predators, sex trafficking, child sex abuse, grooming, sexual assault, sexual harassment, sexual humiliation, and genuinely not honouring the feminine. I love men, I help men, but I don't tolerate shitty behaviour. And you cannot specialise in this field and not address all the side effects of pornography on men, women, and children, and the impact it has on society. I fight for equality and safety for all humans on this planet, but unfortunately we live in a world that's not always safe for women. And a lot of that has to do with pornography. So join me and let's take a deep dive into my most raw and vulnerable share so far, my life.